Copenhagen's coming up, and we are going to discuss climate change, obviously, and the world leaders are going to get together and decide what to do about it or begin the conversations about what to do about it. But in the midst of all this, or right before this, there's a scandal called ClimateGate. ClimateGate. What is it, and is it real or is it not real? That's what I want to address here. Okay, so for those of you who haven't heard about it, it is somebody hacked into the system of University of East Anglia, and they took correspondence with some of the most prominent American and British climate researchers, including Kevin Trenberth, and he's a climatologist at the National Center for Atmospheric Research. And they took these emails, went all the way back to 1996, and they've got a couple of incriminating ones. And they say, you see that, what it shows is they doctor the facts to make it seem as if there is climate change when in fact there isn't. Now what I'm going to do is basically read you the incriminating emails, and then we're going to have a discussion of whether they really are incriminating or they're not. Okay? First, I want to dismiss something right off the bat. One of the charges is that these guys were not kind to the climate change skeptics, and that they said bad things about them in their private emails, including somebody called them idiots, and another one said, oh, I'd love to punch them in the face. Okay? These are private emails. I don't give a damn what they think of climate skeptics. I don't care who they want to punch in the face. That has nothing to do with climate change. Oh, you don't like that? Well, maybe you shouldn't have stolen their private emails. So we would have never found out about what they think of people in their private lives in the first place. But it doesn't matter. That part is 1,000,000% irrelevant, right? Oh, John didn't like Susie and Susie didn't like Sally. Who cares, right? So now that was one of the four main things that the skeptics complain about. And by the way, with these emails, Michelle Malkin, everybody else claiming that's it, it's over. It's definitive that climate change never happened and that these guys are all liars. Definitive, okay? So that's one out of the four is gone. The other part I want to save to the end as to how they deal with the skeptics, because actually that troubles me the most. But here we go. Here is email number one that everyone is quoting. I've just completed Mike's nature trick of adding the real temps to each series for the last 20 years, i.e. from 1981 onwards, and from 1961 for Keith's to hide the decline. Okay, now, they're saying, you see that? They're manipulating the numbers. They're trying to hide the decline in one case, and they're trying to do Mike's nature trick of adding real temps, et cetera, et cetera. So, now, finally, some journalists asked the scientists, hey, what the hell were you guys talking about? First of all, it turns out Mike's nature trick is a way that they refer to a specific thing that they do where it's a, quote, technique of plotting recent instrumental data along with reconstructed data. This places recent global warming trends in the context of temperature changes over longer time periods. Aha! No, they're referring to a specific thing they do. It's called Mike's nature trick. Okay, it refers to something that a scientist with the first name of Mike, obviously, has done. It's not, hey, we'll trick people with it. Okay, and then referring to the decline, well, that refers to a divergent data that they have based on tree rings versus reading of the temperature. If you read the temperature in a thermometer, temperature has been going down steadily, right? But the tree rings, for some reason, don't back up all of the other data, including the thermometer reading. So it's divergent, and they're trying to figure out how to explain that decline. So, look, it sounds a little incriminating, and am I perfectly satisfied with that explanation? I'm not perfectly satisfied with it, but is it what the global warming skeptics are saying? Aha, you see that? They're using tricks and masking declines, etc. No, of course not. So now we go to email number two. We have one climatologist saying to another, the fact is that we can't account for the lack of warning at the moment, and it is a travesty that we can't. So that sounds pretty devastating, you know. Can't account for the lack of warming at the moment, and a travesty that we can't. The CERES data published in August, BAM's '09 supplement on 2008 shows there should be even more warming, but the data are surely wrong. Our observing system is inadequate. Okay. Now this is, that's it, gotcha email, okay? The data is wrong, the data is showing the wrong thing, and we can't have it, it's a travesty, and we wish that it showed the right thing. See, all of climate change was a joke. It was a total lie, fabricated by all these scientists who got together and did this cabal. Of course, what they didn't tell you is the context of this email. It is not referring to all of the data. It is referring to one outlier for the year 2008. The background of the email is that all the other data shows that there is warming, but for that year, this one particular data doesn't. So what they're trying to do is figure out why. Why is it an outlier? Why does it not match the other data? So that is why it's troubling. It's not just troubling because they got, quote unquote, the wrong results they wanted for political reasons or whatever. It's troubling because it doesn't match the other data. And for example, ocean temperatures rising. That is the best indication. But in this case, this particular data for 08 doesn't match. And then they talk in other emails about why it doesn't and what does it mean. So a hell of a lot less gotcha than, of course, the other guys are pointing out. Now, the email that troubled me the most was, and I need more context on this, and I went to the sites, I went to both the conservative sites on this, and I went to the guys who are fighting against the global warming skeptics and their site, but they didn't explain this one very well. Climate Research is apparently a peer-reviewed journal, and they were publishing some work of the skeptics. And there's a couple of emails where some of the scientists are mad about that, and they're saying, hey, why are they publishing these guys? And we should encourage our colleagues in the climate research community to no longer submit to or cite papers in this journal. And I'm having nothing more to do with this until they rid themselves of this troublesome editor, okay? Now look, if they're trying to shut out other voices that are doing legitimate science, well, that's definitely wrong, okay? And so that I'm the most worried about that email. Now, if they think, oh, those guys are getting paid off by the industry, well, review them anyway and say, look, you have to take into account where they're getting their money, and here's where they went wrong with their research. But trying to shut them out of journals altogether, something seems off about that, and I don't like the way that that was going. Now, so this stuff is, I would rate it as somewhat damaging, right? But then think about this. And this is a point that was made in one of the websites that is countering these emails. So they have all of these emails from 13 years. Yet in none of the emails is there a discussion of, hey, let's get together for our cabal meeting on doctoring up all the evidence showing climate warming, okay, or global warming. Hey, did you talk to Al Gore about our whole little scheme to pretend the Earth is warming? Hey, how about all that evidence and data that we've been doctoring for years and years and years? Can you pass that over to me? How about, hey, when did George Soros give you money to make sure that we doctor all this information, etc.? You tell me out of 13 years, you've got 3 emails of one particular data point about 2008 that doesn't match the other data points, and you've got a divergent thing there about declining temperatures in tree rings. Out of 13 years, that's all you got? No, all the rest of the other emails is perfectly normal emails where they say, oh, here's the data, and here's what we think, and here's what's right, and here's the information. And then I looked further into it. Now, a lot of people already know this, but some apparently don't. 200 of the top climatologists in the world, these are the top climate scientists in the world, got together and said, we are certain that the Earth is warming. In fact, it's not in dispute. There was just a study released showing that this decade that's about to conclude was the warmest decade in reported history. Okay, 8 out of the 9 years so far have been among the warmest years in reported history, in recorded history, okay? So the data is overwhelming, and all of them agree, except for about 2 or 3 scientists. So you know what, like, give them all. Say it's 4 scientists, even though it's not even 4 scientists. What are we looking at there? That looks to be about 2%, if I'm doing the math right. And 98% of the scientists, and I'm being very generous here, saying not only is the Earth warming, but they are 90% certain, and scientists don't throw those kind of numbers around unless they're, as certain as they could possibly be, 90% certain that it is man-made. So you have this mountain of evidence and these mountain of professors. And the right wing claims, oh, no. Out of a 13-year period, we've got 3 emails where they are questioning certain data points. So hence, global warming must be a myth made up. Now, what, of course, drives me crazy is the usual thing that the media does where they go, well, climate gate, we got a panic on our hands, we got a scandal. I don't really quite understand it. I don't understand the tree rings. Can't distinguish between all the evidence pre-2008 and 1 year of 2008 on one reading. That makes my head hurt. So you know what? I'll call it even. I'll take 200 scientists who have agreed, and I'll take the 2 or 3 scientists who disagree, and I'll say it's even. I'll say, they claim there's global warming, but the other side says they got 3 emails. And this is how our debate in this country gets perverted. And some of the other emails show scientists' utter frustration with the politics. They're like, why don't they just look at the numbers? And of course, what the scientists don't realize, or maybe they're caught onto it a little later, is it doesn't have anything to do with the numbers. They don't give a damn about the numbers. It's about the money, Lebowski. They have huge industry money pouring in to pretend that there is a debate so we don't do anything about global warming, and they continue to make tremendous money off the energy that we're using now, and that is part and parcel of their industry. And that is causing global warming. And that's how this thing breaks down. Okay. Now, they're going to go to Copenhagen, and there is some very positive news that has come out. If it actually happens, we'll see. I'll be very encouraged. But there's a report out now that the EPA is concluding that greenhouse gases are endangering people's health and must be regulated. Why is that so important? Let me explain. The Supreme Court ruled that, yes, greenhouse gases are pollutants, and hence the Environmental Protection Agency has the right to regulate them. But in order to regulate them, they have to judge that they are dangerous and that they could affect people's health. Okay? And here now the EPA is saying, yes, that is the case. Now, again, why so important? Because the EPA can then do what the Congress won't do. Right now, the House passed the climate energy change bill, climate change energy bill, depending on how you want to call it, characterize it. But the Senate doesn't look like it's going to pass it at all. It seems like it has no chance of passing it. Well, they don't need anybody to pass it if the EPA can simply regulate greenhouse gases. Now, okay, if I was the president, here's what I'd do. Okay, fantastic. We have a Supreme Court ruling. The EPA now says that these are, in fact, dangerous. In fact, that's the conclusion they reached under the Bush administration, but the Bush administration buried the scientists' claims on that and said, no, you were not allowed to publish that report. Well, we're now publishing it, and the EPA is going to regulate it, so problem solved, okay? We're tackling climate change. Congress, thank you very much. Step aside, okay? Now, of course, the Obama administration doesn't work that way. So what they're going to do is, and it's still good news that they're going in this direction, okay? Take your good news where you can get it. They're going to say, hey, look, Congress, I could use the EPA to regulate this, so you better, get your head on straight and give me a bill that I like, and which, by the way, the House bill was so weak. It was so incredibly weak, and that barely passed and has no chance in the Senate. So there's the Obama administration saying, take that incredibly weak bill that you have in the House, pass it through the Senate, otherwise I'm going to do real regulation through the EPA. To which I say, what are we playing these games for? Why don't you just do the regulation already? You think Bush and Cheney waited around to see what Congress was going to do? Look, I don't want to be like them and run roughshod, but the Supreme Court has ruled that you do have the right to make this regulation. And your scientists have said, yes, it is dangerous. What else are you waiting for? But nonetheless, I'm encouraged that at least the EPA has taken this step. They're threatening Congress with it so that we can get some sort of regulation of greenhouse gases so that it doesn't get out of control.